you can't even slightly suspend your disbelief in that whatsoever. Like, there's no way I could, like, for once believe that, like, any of the stuff going on, like, with...
And it was weird, because it was almost like Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader in Empire Strikes Back. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like, join me, we will rule together. I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? He's like, as countries crumble, we will stand together and rule. I'm like, what?
It's like, it's like, what's going on?
It's like, this is some movie-type shit.
Yeah, they must have been watching some of that before they did this. I mean, because I wonder what the inspiration behind all that was, but... Yeah, it was just a mess. Yeah, because I get maybe it was like an illusion. He was trying to play mind games with him or whatever, but regardless, I'm for sure thinking that there's no way we'll ever get an explanation as to why that was like that.
No, probably not. And we'll never see Bray Wyatt ever again when the Fiend's back.
Yeah, or who knows? Maybe we will, maybe we won't. But I guess he's doing the Matt Hardy deal where he's just got multiple characters at once. The only difference is it actually works for Matt Hardy.
I think it could work for Bray Wyatt if you did it right.
Yeah, if you did it right, but I don't think they have. It's one thing when he was switching from the Fiend to the Firefly Funhouse Bray Wyatt, but now that he's doing like the old Bray Wyatt deal again, and you got Sister Abigail, and you got all this. It's a lot, man. It's a lot. But I don't know. And then also on the show, of course, we had I guess like we'll probably just we'll run down the results once again too. Like once we just get through this bit of it, we're kind of just going off of things right now. We'll recap the results and go all the way through the card once again once we get through this. But we also had the WWE Championship match in the show with
I forgot about that. And again, this is the type of thing where I don't necessarily blame them for this because they didn't expect a pandemic, and obviously Roman was supposed to be the one to beat Goldberg at Mania.
Yeah, with the Universal Championship, yeah.
Yeah, and Braun won. Not Braun, Jesus Christ. That's what, going back to Braun, that's why I don't necessarily blame them for that. Because, while it sucks, the thing with Bray, they kind of had to, like, find a connection between the two of them for them to fight, and I think that's the best one they could find. And
I'm not even against the idea of them doing Bray Wyatt versus Braun Strowman. Like, I think that'd be like a big SummerSlam match, like, the Fiend and Braun Strowman. I just think that the way they did it wasn't correct.
Yeah, exactly.
There's that, and like he had the match with Bray at Money in the Bank. That was fine. That was actually better than I was anticipating, surprisingly. But then from there, it's like, where do you go? It's like Bray goes away for a bit, and then they do the handicap match, and then this thing with Miz and Morrison. That was terrible. And then they do this thing with Bray Wyatt here, where he's going back to his old roots, and they go back to the swamp when they fight, and that's just not. I don't think that's the. And with the cinematic wrestling, it's like that's just them trying to experiment, do other things. But the problem is it worked that one time, and now they're just doing it all the time. Like if they do something at SummerSlam cinematic style, like I'm immediately just going to be turned off by because of like what they've done with all the other ones. Like after the Boneyard match for me, I'm just not even going to be excited for it. I don't think there's anything at this point that they can really just get me into at this point with that. I just think it's played out and just dragged out at this point too. I think that they just done it so much that it's like I don't know. That's the other problem they have sometimes. They have a success with one thing, so then they got to keep on doing it over and over again.
Yep. And now going back to Drew and going to Drew and Dolph. This is the type of thing where I think they have no idea what to do with Drew McIntyre, so just bring back Dolph and MT with Dolph.
Yeah, exactly, because, of course, they do have history with each other once again, but I saw a tweet the other day from Brian Alvarez, actually may have been yesterday, where he tweeted that the challenger for the WWE Championship at Extreme Rules is only won one singles match on TV the whole entire year.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, because it's like they did this last year too with Kofi, where they did Dolph and Kofi, because they just didn't know what to do in between with I guess Kofi after he had done the thing with Samoa Joe, and then before he did the thing with Randy, where they just randomly brought Dolph Ziggler back in the picture, and it's like saying that the match was like going to be bad or anything. It's like Kofi and Dolph was like, that's not going to be bad, or even like Drew and Dolph necessarily. It's like, oh, it's not going to be bad, but it's just like there's no way anyone could take Dolph Ziggler as like a legitimate guy who can defeat Drew McIntyre with how he's been portrayed.
Exactly.
And the deal for this one was, it was basically Dolph Ziggler got to pick the stipulation for the match. It was going to be a stipulation of his choosing, and he would not let anyone know, including Drew, what the stipulation was going to be until tonight on the pay-per-view. So he ended up deciding it was going to be an Extreme Rules match, but it was going to be an Extreme Rules match for himself. And then he'd also added, and then I guess also the deal was that if Drew got counted out or disqualified, he would then lose the championship. So, a bit over-gimmicked. A little too much stipulations at once.
Yeah, but I'm used to that with them. The thing that kind of got to me was, why in the fuck was Dolph trying to get back in the ring at some points in the match when he was being counted out? Just hold Drew outside the ring till 10. You can't get disqualified, and he can. You win the belt. Yeah,
exactly. Because I thought overall with everything that was done, like, I think they definitely tried. That's probably the best thing I can say. I think they definitely did try. I thought it was okay. Like, I didn't think it was terrible, but I couldn't really call it good, or I couldn't really super get into it just because of I don't know. It was by design. A lot of stuff is by design. Honestly, in terms of talent, they probably have one of the best rosters they've had in years.
Yep.
But it's just, I think it's just the creative direction and just maybe the lack of creative freedom. I don't know. Maybe they just need to allow the talent to have more creative freedom, and that would make for a better product, because then the talent would just be more into it too, so they could just sell it off better rather than just having these forced programs and forced promos and everything that just don't feel natural, or whatever. So maybe that's that too. I think honestly the best part of that whole match was when Dolph would yell at Drew. He's like, "Why won't you die?" I think that was honestly the best part of the whole match. He just didn't know what to say, so he just said that. And once again, it was a 2.5 hour pay-per-view, so it's originally these were supposed to be 4 hours. Maybe they're back to 3 hours now. I don't even know what the deal is anymore. If they are back to 3 hours, that's good, but even that, you can't have 2.5 hour pay-per-views. I get we're in a pandemic right now, and it's a different time in everything, but it's if they ever do decide to go back to doing traditional pay-per-views where they sell them for however much it's going to be a month and then whatever, it's they can't be doing this. Or maybe because it's on the network, they could just get away with whatever they want. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe they can. The shows are just too short. But what are you gonna do? I don't know anymore. I think the main thing before we worry about pay-per-views, we need to just worry about the general product.
Yeah, even Raw and SmackDown, because you got to have good TV product in order for to care about the pay-per-views.
Exactly. If you don't have good TV product, you're not going to have good pay-per-views.
Yeah, and I think I don't know if they'd ever go away from this, but I think part of the problem is it's been like this for years. It's been like this since I don't remember the last time it wasn't like this, because even when they were doing the In Your House thing, they still had basically something every month, but I think they just have way too many shows too. Because I think that's part of it. I don't think you could, and this has been a problem for years. Back in the day, they didn't have this issue as much because they were bringing in huge numbers and everything was just built to more properly. But I just think that at least at this stage, maybe I just think they just need to cut back on pay-per-views, just because I just don't think they. I don't know. I just think they don't have enough. By doing something every month, it's that. Then you have to have the matches Drew and Ziggler. Which, once again, nothing against either one of those guys, but it's just you just gotta have those matches in between, and then at the SummerSlams, then you gotta. I feel if they just had less pay-per-views, they just mean more, and you get better matches, and hopefully with more time to build to them, you just have a better overall product. I think that's part of it. Some people think it just needs to be edgier. I know people for years are oh, I gotta go back to TV 14, everything. I just think maybe it needs a little bit more edge, perhaps, but I've actually been a proponent that just because it's PG doesn't mean it can't be good. I firmly believe that. I really don't think that it has to be TV 14 for it to be great or anything. I don't really think that's totally the case. That's just my opinion. Dynamite's TV 14, I think that's great. That works for them and everything, and I think that's awesome. But I don't think the PG thing is what's killing WWE at this point, because it's not really like cartoonish or everything like it was going like at one point. It's not really like that at this point. It's just not. It's just missing stuff.
It is. But let's now that we talk about that, let's just go through the whole card real quick.
Yeah. So now that so we just wanted to do it a little bit differently this time, just because I don't know how we were gonna pull that off if we would have done it through like the usual. So we had the kickoff show match. Actually, well, yeah. So we had the kickoff show match, and then we had there's a couple things I'm just gonna point out. This was of course, this is done at the Performance Center once again, Orlando, Florida. The only thing that wasn't done was a swamp fight. That was done cinematic. That was taped beforehand. Michael Cole and Corey Graves would be the commentators for SmackDown, and Tom Phillips, Byron Saxton, Samoa Joe would be the commentators for Raw. Theme song would be "Watch Me Now" by Kevin Rudolph. So we'd have the kickoff show match. We'd have Kevin Owens versus Murphy. Kevin Owens would pick up the win, 8 minutes, 55 seconds. 3.25 rating from me on that one. I thought it was a pretty good match. No, it was back and forth. There were some strikes. There were some strikes between both of them. There was one point I remember where Kevin Owens, he tried to go for the stunner early on, and then Murphy would be able to avoid it, and then he'd hit him with a Meteora, then he'd hit him with a Brain Buster. And I remember at the end, or toward the end, Murphy would try to do a superplex, then Owens would knock him off. Then he'd hit him with the top rope moonsault, get a near fall. And then Owens in the end would duck a Meteora by Murphy, and he'd hit him with the super kick, then get him with the stunner, and he'd pick up the win. So overall, that was a pretty solid match. Then getting into the main show, we had the SmackDown Tag Team Championship. It was the New Day versus Shinsuke Nakamura and Cesaro. As I said, I thought it wasn't anything like, to rave about, like it wasn't anything great, but I thought it was good. It had a fun ending, and I guess we'll just see what happens with Cesaro and Nakamura as Tag Team Champions. They noted that the New Day was like already at this point like 8-time Tag Team Champions, so they're going to win them back at some point. So it's kind of like whatever at that point, but the Tag Team division's kind of not.
And again, I missed the first 50 minutes of the show because of family obligations, just to say that.
But
that's why you're talking about it and I'm not.
Yeah, because I guess that wouldn't really be fair, but
yeah.
But it's like the tag team division. That's another thing. It's like that hasn't been great in years either. Like NXT at one point it was like really like in 2016. When they had the Revival, they had DIY. They even had Enzo and Cass at one point. They had a bunch of tag teams, but I think that was like the last time they really like had a really great tag team division. Because they still have really good tag teams now. They have the Street Profits, and even the New Day are still like a pretty good team. And they're pretty popular, and they move a lot of merch. And there's that. You got Miz and Morrison. You got some teens, but it's just I don't know. It just seems out of like whack at this point. Like it's kind of I don't know.
Yeah, but again, that's a whole other thing. The tag team division. I just don't care about it. We don't need to go into that though.
Yeah, they definitely. They got some good teams, but it's definitely not as good as AEW's tag team division, or not even Impact.
Well,
not even Impact at this point.
I wouldn't say any promotion is as good as AEW's tag team division.
Yeah, even Impact now after last night or the previous night, they definitely got a better tag team division now as well. Mm-hmm. But then after that, we'd there was a little segment with Alexa Bliss, Nikki Cross, Asuka, and Kairi Sane where they're trying to boost Nikki's confidence heading into her SmackDown Women's title match, and then they'd have the SmackDown Women's Championship match. Then it'd be Bayley with Sasha Banks in her corner versus Nikki Cross and Alexa Bliss. That was a pretty good match. As I've been for months now, I was really, and I'm still obviously enjoying Bayley's reign as SmackDown Women's Champion. Over 280 days now, I think that's what they said. I think it may actually be 280 days now. But I thought Nikki losing here really didn't do her any service after just losing the last couple weeks heading into the pay-per-view. Obviously, I'm fine with Bayley winning, and the match was good. So, but just the fact that they had Nikki lose, going into the pay-per-view the last couple weeks on SmackDown, that was my only critique of that. But Bayley would win. I give that a 3.25 star rating on that. then after that, we were supposed to have a United States Championship match between Apollo Crews and MVP, but it would be announced by Tom Phillips that Apollo Crews arrived at the building and could not